I'm going to press record. Thank you for joining me on the Wednesday webinar. This PD session tonight is based on breathing buddies. Now, for those of you that were on the webinar last Wednesday, you would have experienced me sharing something quite vulnerable and raw. The last 7 days for me have been a massive transition, big transformation. And me personally, I've really been connecting to breath every day for over an hour doing breath work. And the transformation and the energy that's been moving is huge. I understand personally the power of breath and the breath work and how it can be used not only for trauma release, but also for altering consciousness. But in particular, the people I'm talking about tonight are our students and our kids. If we can start to teach them at a young age how important it is to connect to the breath, we set them up for better emotion regulation for life. I really emphasize when I do work with primary students, the animals. And there's a reason why I use animals such as shark breath, snake breath, eagle breath, elephant breath. They all get very repetitive after a while for a teacher. But there's a specific reason that I use animals as breathing techniques. Simple, you'll learn a couple of them tonight. Really simple techniques to help children to start to understand their emotions, because that's all it is, energy in motion like this. Okay, and anxiety and excitement, same feeling, different emotion. It's being able to understand and acknowledge whether it is positive or negative, or how to shift that anxiety into excitement is just one example. But I ask you, for those of you online right now live, to share with me why, in the chat box, why do you think we use animals? Let's see who has been paying attention. Why do you think we use animals for most of these breathing techniques? And to give you a little clue, I turn it into a story and take them on a journey where they're actually embodying the practices and learning the animals that help them to breathe. Why do you think that is, all of you wonderful people? Therese, Lyndall, Hannah, Bianca, Ronnie, why do you think it is that we use animals to teach these breathing techniques, especially to primary children? But they are just as applicable to senior school students or even teachers. Help kids to visualize and embody the different breaths. It does. So they're visualizing the animal so they can do something and therefore embody it. But what is the something that the animal helps them to do? It's the same reason when I introduce myself to primary kids, I introduce myself as Sean the sheep, instead of just saying, I'm Sean. So why do we think that may be? Lyndall has had a very good answer or response. Create interest, Therese. You are definitely on the right track. If you create interest and you engage them, Bianca, ding, ding, ding. The second part of your response. It's relatable. It's easy to remember. So, for example, teachers, shark breath is my favorite and it's the kids' favorite. And I've done it with 4-year-olds all the way through to year 12s. Now, shark breath, okay, and I really emphasize with the students to think of a shark, and the shark's name is Bruce. Like Bruce from Finding Nemo, a big smiley happy shark. He's not a scary shark. So when we catch this emotion in here, this anger, this frustration, this sadness, this negative or this yucky feeling is how I explain it to little kids. Yucky, it's not nice. It's a yucky feeling and it's in here. And I ask them to point, where can you feel it? And they're pointing here and they're doing this. And I say, okay, so if we want to move that yucky feeling and get rid of it, release it and let it go, we make a fin like a shark. So like a big Bruce the Hammerhead or big Bruce the Great White, we make a nice big fin And when we've got our fin up nice and tall, we take a big breath in through our nose. And then we make this sound and we move our hands down. Big breath in. Big breath in. A nice long one. And then I ask them to point where they feel something happening, and they all go like this. Because they're actually stirring up this energy. They're moving this energy, okay, that is generally stuck in our heart chakra. It's right in there in our chest, and it's probably even lower, okay, down lower. But by doing the long exhale, this is what we really want to emphasize with kids. Taking a deep breath in through the nose and then a long exhale is the important part. Because that long exhale is like giving our vagus nerve, okay, giving our vagus nerve a nice gentle massage internally. And our vagus nerve is that nerve of well-being. It's that nerve that's running all the way through us, telling us if we're okay or whether we need to be protected from danger. So shark breath is a really great way to remember that. Like I almost lost my train of thought. Is a really great way to remember to take a big breath in and then a long exhale and get them to just keep repeating it. And the other thing with the animals in particular is that what will happen is because they're having to access their prefrontal cortex to think about what animal it is, what does the animal do, what does the animal look like, what's the action, and they're actually using all four learning systems, auditory, visual, kinesthetic, and somatic. And in that moment, they've forgotten about the thing that was making them feel yucky or not good. So shark breath is the first breathing buddy. And as I showed, it's really simple. Righto, guys, make a big fin, hands together, big breath in through your nose. Let it go through your mouth. And then repeat. Really simple. And then if you've seen me or worked with me, I pull out my friend Sizzle the Snake. Now, Sizzle the Snake, he's not here at the moment, but Sizzle the Snake is a little prop I use. It's a piece of plastic that moves like a snake and it looks magical. You don't need to do that to save the day with these kids, but instead of making a fin above the head, we make our hands like a snake, okay? Sizzle the Snake at our chest. And you can just imagine like a beautiful class of year ones all sitting there nice and tall, eating out of the palm of my hand, and we're breathing like animals, because that is literally what happens, because I almost hypnotized them beforehand. Wouldn't teachers all love to know how to hypnotize kids? In a good way. So, hands are together. We're breathing like Sizzle. We're taking a big breath in through our nose, and then we're making the sound of nice, relaxed snakes. Big breath in. Big breath in. Big breath in. And then it's always fun on the very last breath. It might be the 5th round or the 6th round to say who can do the longest snake. And you'll get boys going until they go blue in the face. So again, it's really important that you emphasize the exhale. The long exhale is the winner when it comes to emotion regulation. Now, teachers, let's see who has been following along. All of you, hopefully, because I'm about to ask you a question. Who do you think out of all people, age groups, demographics, this is a tricky question. Where do you think the highest rate of mental illness currently lies? Give me some ideas. Just throw some out there. Where do you think the highest percentage of mental health problems or anxiety in particular generally lie at the moment? Not generally, terrible word, Sean, but it's fact. Which demographic? Lyndall, you were paying attention. It is in fact uni students. So what does that tell us? It tells us many things, but most importantly, these students, one, probably haven't built up enough resilience through schooling, especially high school, because it's been so fast paced and everything moves so quickly that they don't actually have time to understand their emotions. And even in particular males, understanding what your intuition is, or even connecting to this heart space and knowing that, you know, my heart's telling me that this is not a good decision. My heart's telling me that this is dangerous. Okay, making those calls, you need to understand how to connect heart to mind. And the fastest way to do that is with your breath. Okay, our breath is constant. Our breath is there from birth till death. It's the first thing and the last thing we do. No need to apologize, Caitlin. You can go back and watch the recording later, if you please. So uni students are our highest risk at the moment. And you could imagine, and I can imagine, if these uni students had learnt the power of breath and the breathwork techniques as students, then all of a sudden their understanding in those moments of crisis or of adversity at university, they can always connect to breath. And that doesn't have to be sitting in the university library doing a shark breath. It could just be remembering that shark, remembering Sean the sheep. And this is what I reiterate with primary kids. Remember the shark, or think, oh, that funny bald guy that was at my school, Sean the sheep. Oh, and Sean the sheep taught us about Bruce the shark, which reminded us to breathe. So then when they're 25, 35, 45, however old they are, they think of this animal in that moment of yuckiness in here, and they connect to it and they breathe. So far you've got a shark, you've got a snake, really good for the little kids. Now for the older kids, like say year 5 and up, they want to be moving more. We know that. So I won't stand right now, but the way I introduce it is I ask them, how does an eagle fly? And the first thing they'll do is they move their arms like this. Say, exactly. If you want to be funny, if eagles did this, they wouldn't fly very far. If they took short breaths, they wouldn't fly very far. But when they take nice long strokes, they glide through the sky. So deep breath in through the nose. And this one's a fast breath out through the mouth. And then if you're up the front demonstrating like all good teachers and doing it with the students, it gets fun and it helps them move energy really fast. And it's really good for boys who can't sit still. So you do the breathing in through the nose, and then you get faster and faster and faster with the class. So it ends up being, okay? And boys in particular, you imagine that is like getting out that energy that they have to release. Works even better if you actually get them to do the at the end. So boys in particular, on the last one, getting that anger out in a healthy way. The more of that you do with the boys, the less they have when they actually flick the switch and get angry, because they're learning to regulate anger. And that, is some of the work I do with men and boys. When we are doing that and we're actually screaming like a warrior, rah, is a healthy strategy. It's called primal screaming. If your husband or partner or anybody you know has anger issues, maybe suggest it. Even into a pillow, underwater, maybe hold his head underwater. No, I'm joking. So you've got a shark, a snake, and an eagle. There are a number of other ones: elephant, bumblebee, butterfly, you name them. When I do the work with the kids, and what I'm building or what I'm working on to eventually share with all of you is the story journey. So where they meet the shark and then the snake and then the eagle, and then they go and meet elephant and then lion. And then at the end, they all come together and they do a little magical dance. It helps those kids remember, because that's what this is about. Now, we have a couple of moments. I'd like to put it to the audience. I will basically, who have we got? Caitlin, Bianca, Lyndall, Therese, Hannah on Zoom, and we've got a couple of others on Instagram. What is your biggest challenge right now with student wellbeing? Let's go with student wellbeing to start with. What is your biggest challenge right now? You can either raise your hand to talk or you can type it in the chat. What is your biggest student wellbeing challenge right now? Motivation. So I'm guessing, Bianca, them coming back from probably spending most of the time sitting on the couch watching Netflix to getting them involved in their studies. So let me speak about motivation. And I know you've got senior school, I think you were saying. But in terms of motivation, there are a few things that I really suggest. One, novelty. So them coming in and having a completely new activity set up. Yes, there's a bit of vulnerability there from your part because you're like, if they walk in and they hate it, are you going to feel terrible? Just let that go, release that. But coming up with new ideas, if you've got senior school students, giving them the opportunity to come up with new ideas and say, all right, we've got 30 minutes allocated on Friday. You guys have got access to X equipment and you need to design something that we're all going to do. Getting them involved in their learning, it's called experiential learning. And the organization that I am now working for, experiential learning, is their big thing. It's huge and it will help people get motivated if they actually understand their inner genius, because not every kid wants to play with blocks. Not every kid wants to play with mobile phones, although most of them are addicted to mobile phones. But every kid has a genius, and if we can tap into that genius, motivation suddenly becomes something we can leverage. Caitlin, anxiety about being back at school, missing mum and dad, year one boy, happy in class, but sometimes sooky. So for a year one boy, my feeling would be trying to limit the window that he is, I'm guessing it's a boy, maybe a girl, missing mum and dad. Well, that doesn't really matter. Limiting the window that they're spending in that sookiness. So breath, 100% has to be a part of it. So it's getting them doing an animal breathing activity. And you might have to go back and watch some of those. Doing it with that student. So we're like, all right, we don't want to feel like that, do we? No. Okay, we want to feel happy, we want to have fun. So we're going to partner up with our friend Bruce the shark. We're going to do shark breath. Or everybody get up, we're all going to do a shark breath together. Okay, the more you can get that student involved. I did the breath in a cake smell, breathe in and out and blow out the candles. Okay, again, good strategy, okay, the cake smell strategy, but it doesn't have the full embodiment practice for kids. And this is what I talked about earlier. Getting a child to try and visualize something is very hard. Getting them to do something and be something, it totally interrupts their brain. Okay, it totally interrupts the pattern that's playing out of I miss mum and dad, separation anxiety. Get that student being an eagle or a snake or a butterfly or a bee, okay, and doing it with them, making the sound of the animal, their little brain, okay, is already thinking about the next thing rather than the thing that's making them upset. Lyndall, the uncertainty is difficult for our kids with ASD and constant changes. That one, Lyndall, is all about, as you know so well, allowing and surrendering, because those kids being there at school is a win. Okay. And if you can just focus on getting them, relaxed in that environment again, that's the win. If we get them even doing work and concentrating, okay, big celebration, but you've got to acknowledge, and I know that you do, that those students it will take time, okay? But the more patient you can be, you know that your energy is going to rub off on them. So the more patient you can be, and the more positive you can be, and sometimes just giving them silence, allowing them to just decompress, okay? So instead of resisting it, allow it, okay? Obviously, as long as they're being safe and things like that. So breath is all about that, okay? It's about allowing, okay? It doesn't matter whether it's a child, a baby, a grandfather, whoever. If we try and control the breath, that's not the purpose of it. We allow the breath to flow as if it's just coming in, filling us up, and then it's falling out, okay? And an inhale through the nose and a slow exhale through the mouth is the best strategy for a child that needs to learn to emotion regulate. Emotional intelligence, they talk about it a lot, EQ. You can't do EQ until you can do BQ, which is breathing. Okay, and when do we get taught to breathe? That's something that people just don't understand yet. Our consciousness, well, mine has, Lyndall's, I know yours has, and I hope for the others as well. The reason you're here is because you are interested in this. But learning to breathe and access the breath is your ticket to emotional freedom. And once you can regulate your emotions using your breath, you are always empowered, you are always in control. And by doing that, you're showing up as your best self regardless of external circumstances, because everything starts within here. And, you know, they talk about this being our powerhouse. This is our powerhouse. Okay, there's a book I have in my room. It's a very ancient text. Okay, it's called Man's Higher Consciousness. And it talks about, in that book, cases of people, and I'm not suggesting this to anybody, octogenarians, they're called, I believe, where they survive for months on nothing but breath. And this was like a long time ago. People do try it now, and some people do it. I'm not saying at all that we suggest this, that I suggest this, because I certainly don't do it. But what it shows is that our body can survive with almost anything, but it cannot survive without breath. But if you can harness that breath and use that breath as a reservoir and a source, you're the one that wins. You don't need to talk to people about your breathing if you don't want to. You don't need to be out there telling everybody that you do breath work like I do and that I'm so passionate about it. How to get over student embarrassment in high school with doing the breathing activity. That is your subconscious belief that you are not enough, I'm going to say. It would link back to either not feeling enough, fear of rejection, and underneath all of that is where I'd love for you, Therese, to get to a place of unfuckwithable, where the opinion of a student is not going to determine your inner world. So 100% resonate with what you're saying there, Therese. And it does take work to get to that point. But how empowered would you feel to just continue the activity regardless of the student response? That is you being in your power. The moment you react, okay, instead of respond, react to students, you give away your power. If you were to complete the activity, regardless of what they do, they could be climbing off the walls, they could be scratching, whatever. Complete the activity and then address the student. And the question is, why did you feel the need to behave like that? That's it. Let them respond, not react. Let them respond That's all you can do. Because at the end of the day, you're a soul, they're a soul, they're at different levels of development. They may not be ready to receive what you're doing, but there may be 5 students in the class that are, and there may be another 5 that are interested, and there may be another 5 that'll do it and they're not really paying attention. But out of all those students, with consistency, with the right leadership and role modeling, they will start to embody it. That is, I taught 16, 17-year-olds for 6 years. And you need to walk the walk. That's the biggest thing. The moment you give them the tiniest little bit, and I learned it in my first year of teaching them, the moment you give them the most little bit of looseness and you start to sort of let it go a little bit, they'll take it. Then it took me a term and a half to bring it back in. By the end of the year, I finally had them back where I had them at the start of the year. So it's really being clear on your own feeling of enoughness. Being a high school teacher is incredibly rewarding. You're vulnerable a lot of the time, but their opinion is not your reality. So you need to just be okay with that. That was a great session, guys. I really enjoyed that. Just to update all of you that have been paying attention to Smile Teachers, especially most of you who are following the journey, we are going through a pivot. We are going through a transition. You will still have access to lots of incredible content. It's not always going to be me talking. To conserve my own energy and to also deliver value in other arenas, because I do more than just education. There's a lot more depth to me than what I talk about here, in particular healing. What I do really want you to understand and appreciate is to just keep following along, sharing what I'm doing, being engaged, I guess, because I'm partnered with a number of partners, organizations who are doing incredible things. One in particular has been for a number of years transforming the way we educate. And I'm really excited because it gives me more of an opportunity to share this with tens of thousands of teachers and to do what I love, which is the emotional intelligence, resilience, spirituality intertwined together. Please, I nearly forgot, I'm going to put a link in the chat box right now. There it is. This will give you about 8 breathing cards to use with your students, to use with your kids. I'm not sure what you mean, Therese. That link there will give you breathing cards. You can cut them out, you can laminate them. There will be more of those to come. Please have a great evening. Take care of yourselves. Make sure you're connecting to breath. And Total Teacher Self-Care will be coming to you very soon, where you can walk through a 4-week journey of the most life-changing strategies that we've used on our retreats. And just stay tuned for that. There's a free mini course available. You can find that through our social media. Have a wonderful evening. I'm off to have some jackfruit tacos. All the best. Take care. Be happy and teach well.